Hello to everyone at the American Solidarity Party convention. It's my pleasure to address you, and thanks to Amar and others for the invitation. Um, as I hope you know, I'm a great admirer of the party and a relatively new member. And though I don't have the resources right now to put into the party machinery, as it were, please know how much I appreciate all of you for doing this. And also know that so many of us are rooting you on from afar. Um, I'd have to say, in many ways, it couldn't be a better time to be a part of the American Solidarity Party. Everyone from Eugene Robinson to younger people in my courses are looking around for something new and different and exciting. So across the age spectrum, across the political spectrum, I mean, we've known for some time now, of course, that independents dwarf both Democrats and Republicans when it comes to numbers. And we've known fairly recently that what I call the ULKs, the upper left quadrant folks, those who are, for lack of a better way of saying it, socially conservative and economically liberal, have also had tens of millions of folks associated with them who are politically homeless. But even beyond that, we are now clearly, very clearly, in the midst of a major political realignment. When, again, so many people are looking around for something else. And the current disruption from both the pandemic and the racial justice protests and riots have put us even more quickly and more expeditiously, I think, along the path of realignment and creative destruction. I think that's one really, in fact, silver lining of the pandemic is we've had some more time to think about that, pause, and think about those big picture political questions, which may lead more people to come to the conclusion that a pox on both your houses, is the way to go. Now, nowhere to go from there, of course, is not clear to a lot of folks. We don't need Chaz, the Capital Autonomous Zone. What we need, of course, is the kind of creative political thinking that is going on right now within the ASP and at your convention. I also happen to believe that now is the time to think about a new religious revival. There's clearly a spiritual void to fill, a vacuum to fill. And folks have been talking about this for some time now, but especially as we see the quasi-spiritual and even liturgical nature of what's happening at the moment, I think it's more clear than ever that the time is right for something like this. And as we move forward to something like that, I think we'll be far less embarrassed, of course, to express our foundational ultimate beliefs about our source or sources of ultimate concern and how they function in shaping the foundation of our political beliefs. Now, of course, one of the key strengths of the ASP is how you, in fact, do give millions and millions of people a home who don't fit into our hopelessly lazy and simplistic political binary. Distributism is one of the classic ways that this is done, especially in relation to the binary of capitalism versus socialism. I've also recently come to know and admire the Focolare's economy of communion, which has deep resonances. And I think if you're interested in distributism, you might also be interested in the economy of communion if you don't know about it already. But I am by no means an economist, and am learning still about that aspect of the movement and of the party. What drew me most powerfully to the ASP, of course, is how our vision of human dignity relates to both, the pro-life versus social justice political binary. Going all the way back to when I was 23, 24 years old and a high school teacher teaching a course to my juniors at Catholic Memorial High School in Waukesha, Wisconsin. called Social Justice and Medical Ethics, I was dismayed about the pro-life versus social justice binary. And in my own tradition of Roman Catholicism, of course, we at least in theory do our best to break that binary and see social justice issues as life issues and life issues as social justice issues. And there simply is no party like the American Solidarity Party when it comes to that. And I believe our current COVID pandemic moment has presented us with a dynamic opportunity to think about how we might apply that particular vision to a particular issue, and that is how we treat the elderly in this country. It says something both about the moral status of the elderly that often pro-lifers are concerned with, that they have the same dignity, God-given dignity as any of us do, particularly at the end of life when they have some, where they're burden on others, or when so-called burden on others, or when they have some kind of disability, particularly cognitive disability that would make them less autonomous and self-aware than the rest of us. And so pro-lifers have a definite interest, obviously, in standing up for the dignity of all human life at that stage. But of course, social justice approaches focus on the systems and structures which lead us to put vulnerable elderly in those positions at the end of life as well. And what a great opportunity for us to move together as both pro-life and social justice focused people to work for this vulnerable population. The pandemic has sort of turned over the log, as it were, and showed us the ugliness that has been intentionally pushed away from our social consciousness for so long. And now I believe is the time to move on this. And happily there are, from everybody from the disability rights community to the elder justice community to Catholic charities to very traditional pro-life groups have said they want important changes made, and legislative and other proposals are being put together right now to address that. Will this translate into actual action, effective, efficient action? I am not sure about that. I guess we'll have to see. It may be that the same old story creeps up again, as it has with abortion. We've seen with abortion that obvious common ground, both to support prenatal children and support their mothers, misses the mark when it comes to actual effective legislation again and again, because the extremist factions within the legacy two-party system kill those proposals, even though they're widely supported by the general public and right across very, very different kinds of activist groups. It may be that happens again with regard to this. But if it is going to happen again, that's terrible, full stop. But it will be absolutely the most powerful evidence ever that even more powerful evidence that we absolutely need something like the American Solidarity Party to capture what U.S. Americans actually believe about these issues and not be ruled by the extremes in our outdated political duopoly. Let me conclude my remarks by saying something about our post-COVID moment that is coming, I hope, within the next several months. And particularly to think about it with respect to resisting the throwaway culture which has been put on steroids during the pandemic and during the lockdown, with a culture of genuine human encounter. In my book, Resisting Throwaway Culture, I argue that a culture of encounter is in fact the antidote to our throwaway culture. But especially after we have a vaccine, I believe we must work very hard and do everything we can to undo the habits and attitudes of throwaway culture that our lockdown put into hyperdrive. We must resist, for instance, the urge to be fearful and socially distance from each other. What a horrible phrase, socially distance. I sometimes use it. I try to use physically distance now, but the last thing we should be thinking about is socially distancing. But anyway, we should reserve and resist the right. We should reserve the right to resist the urge to be fearful and socially distanced instead of having genuine human interactions with each other. We should also resist the slouch towards Zoom meetings and text instead of having genuine human interaction. We should resist the urge to push buttons on our phones and have goods delivered to us without having genuine human interaction. We should resist the urge to do education virtually and online instead of having genuine human interaction. And I mean this last one quite sincerely and seriously. We must resist the coming push, and it's coming, of corporations to make money by replacing genuine human interactions with interactions between humans and robots. Whether that's in the hospital, the bedroom, or local restaurants, and many other places, we will absolutely need, after this pandemic, to resist that with everything we have. Human beings simply cannot flourish as the kind of creatures we are without lots and lots and lots of embodied, real, genuine human interaction. The epidemic of loneliness was already worse for our health than obesity and smoking before the lockdowns. And the lockdowns, of course, have kicked that up into another level as well, as we've become even more disconnected from each other and become more reliant on the things we can get delivered to us by nameless, faceless people after pressing 2 buttons on our smartphones. So given the headwinds that we will face in the post-pandemic world, we need to decide now, I believe, to push hard for a front porch, extended family, public-facing localism focused on encounter, genuine human encounter, rather than a back deck, nuclear family, globalist consumerism focused on the privacy and autonomy of individuals. I look forward to seeing where the party goes from here. It's a very exciting time, again, to be a part of it, and I will certainly be following what's going on with everyone during this time and going forward into the general election. Thanks again for inviting me, and again, looking forward to what comes next.